Hi everyone, Holly from Safe for Kids here. I wanted to jump on and talk to you all about, you will have all seen in the news and in news feeds on social media about the heinous act that happened in Queensland with a 7-year-old being taken from a shopping centre and sexually assaulted. And I've been seeing lots of parents talking about their anxiety around that sort of thing and having their children grabbed in shopping centres and things like that. And as horrible as it was, I just wanted to remind people that most abuse actually happens a lot closer to home. Depending on which literature you look at, some people say 4%, some people say 10% of sexual abuse is by a stranger. So I'm just worried that parents will still focus on stranger danger because it's in the media and everybody's talking about it. But I want to talk to you about, having conversations with your children starting from, 3 years of age about nobody's allowed to touch their private parts and things like that. I read some comments by parents saying, I'm having to hold on to my children in the shopping centre and sometimes they run off and things like that. But if you've taught your children things about their early warning signs, their body's way of telling them that they feel unsafe, you could also talk to them about that you get early warning signs. So it's not about frightening children, but just say, mummy's got her early warning signs. She doesn't feel safe. If I can't see you, then, I feel unsafe for you. So that's why I want you to stay close by me. I saw another mother talking about bad people. And we're not trying to frighten children. So rather than talking about bad people and stranger danger, because it's not usually strangers, in this case it was, but it's not usually strangers that abuse children. It's people that are known and possibly loved. Could be family members, could be next door neighbours, whoever. So rather than, talking about bad people, the language that I usually use with children is tricky people. So tricky people might say, I've lost my puppy, come and help me find it. But again, from children from a very young age, if we explain it to them and not demonise everybody, because if your child's lost at the shops, they're going to have to talk to a stranger. So if you've taught them, that all strangers are bad and people are bad and things like that, wherever possible, I don't use the word bad. I don't talk about good pictures and bad pictures. I use public pictures and private pictures. Good touch, bad touch. We don't use that sort of language. It's safe touch and unsafe touch. Because whenever kids hear bad, they think they might be bad and things like that. So I'm hoping that parents will, if your children see this in the media, use it as a teachable moment. If they don't see it, then, you don't want to frighten them. So perhaps just saying, if you're in the shopping centre, I really like you to stay close to me because, if I can't see you, then you can't, if you can't see me, then I can't see you. And I feel unsafe for you, rather than, putting that scaremongering into children. Teaching them, like I said before, nobody's allowed to touch your private parts unless it's for medical reasons or hygiene, and then mum and dad have to ask. Consent's a really big thing. Teaching them to have a safety team. So, find out if your childcare centre, is your school teaching protective education. Childcare centres should be teaching this. We need to start teaching it from 3 years of age. And I've written a whole program so that for that very reason, using fairy tales. You might talk about Little Red Riding Hood. She was sent out by herself into the woods, and then there was the tricky wolf. So again, those years ago when those stories were written, they were written for this exact thing. The wolf is a perpetrator, but we don't want to frighten children, but we do want to empower them. And having the language around protective education is really important. So, like this teaching kids about their early warning signs. So you can just do these with simple activities to get them to feel them, like blowing up a balloon and bursting it. And then when they jump, oh, that's your body signals. That's your body's way of telling you that you feel unsafe. All animals get early warning signs. You might talk to the children about how snails and turtles go into their shell, and that squid squirt ink, and that skunk squirt out stinky farty smelly stuff. That's their body signals. But we get these body signals too. And, you know, they might be, my heart starts to race, beats really fast. If I can't see you, my heart will be racing. So that's why Mummy needs you to stay close by her, because, you know, you don't want to make Mummy feel unsafe. Probably the most simplest thing that I teach children that has a very lasting impression on children is simply just teaching them this for safe and this for unsafe. So if your child tends to wander off, you can just go, hey, oh gosh, I better go back and be close to Mum because Mum is feeling unsafe for me. A beautiful mum I know in the Northern Territory was telling me how her child was at a shopping centre, and there happened to be a man who was drunk, came up to her son. So he sort of snuggled in close to his mum, and it's just gone like that. So she's moved him to the other side, and you know, he's only 4 at the time, but you know, she's moved him to the other side, and then the man's wandered off. And so the mum gets down to his level and says, you know, obviously you were feeling unsafe. Have your early warnings, because she's very big on protective education and her kids know the language really well. And so she said, you know, how do you feel now that he's gone? And he said, oh, Mum, I've still got my early warning signs. And there happened to be a policeman at the shopping centre. So the mum takes the little boy over to the policeman, who again gets down to his level, and the mum says, look, you know, my son's just had this incident and he'd like to talk to you about it. So the son got to verbalise that there was this drunk man and he had his early warning signs, and he went like this to his mum, and he had all of the language, and it handled it beautifully, but it was because the mum had given him the ground rules of protective education. So, you know, the whole program is in our parent handbook. So, you know, these are some of the some of the early warning signs that your children might have. So, you know, butterflies in your tummy, your heart racing, your legs feel like jelly. You might wet yourself, or you might, I think there's even poo running down her leg. But teaching kids about their early warning signs and to listen to their body. And if they feel unsafe, they've got to listen, and they've got to tell somebody on their safety team. But adults also get their early warning signs. So, you know, using this language will really empower your children. So, yeah, I'm not taking away what happened, but please remember it's not usually strangers that are doing this to children. So teaching protective education from a very young age is so important. It doesn't have to be scary, and this has inspired me. So I think I'm going to try and jump on, and maybe every day next week I'm going to do something on the program so that you can start teaching your children protective education, especially before you know, Christmas, because maybe we'll talk about consent and all of those sorts of things. So I hope this was useful. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.